First up on our list of things to talk about, before we get into the specific tasks that this objective requires, I want to spend just a minute going through some of the foundations, the vocabulary, if you will, of Active Directory. Now, this is not directly testable on the exam, at least based off of how the objectives are worded. But you kind of have to know what these things are to appreciate the later things that you're going to be asked to do. The first of which is just recognizing what an Active Directory domain is, and how an Active Directory domain and an Active Directory forest are interrelated. This may be entirely review or just completely something that's unnecessary for you, so feel free to click through to the next clip if you find this to be uninteresting or unuseful. But if you're brand new to the notion of Active Directory, or if you've been in an Active Directory that is a very simple one, this explanation of some very complex ones can be helpful as you begin working through the different questions that this exam may require. Now, an Active Directory domain is something that we are intending to install here onto our domain controller we'll be dealing with here in just a minute. And in most places, an Active Directory domain, at least in Microsoft parlance, the domain is represented by a triangle. So you're going to see a lot of triangles here coming up. But what I want to show you here is that an Active Directory domain is sort of the boundary of authentication for a set of users and computers and the different resources that they work with. So when you log into your machine at company.pri, you're logging into the domain that is company.pri. Today, these days, most organizations work within what is called a single domain, single forest model. And so the entirety of the workspace that you're dealing with is this thing called company.pri. But what I want to show you here is that it is possible to take multiple domains and connect them together to create a tree of domains, or a forest, if you will, of domains, should you have that need to do so. So, for example, sub to my company.pri domain, it is entirely possible for me to create another domain that sits below. This other domain, denver.company.pri, is one that perhaps was created for one reason or another. Maybe it's a different company called Denver. Maybe it's a different group of people that want to have their own consolidated set of users and computers and resources. They want their own boundary to be different than the root domain there with company.pri. In the 70-412 exam, we'll talk more about the reasons why you would make these decisions, but for now, just recognize that it is entirely possible to create these multi-domain structures that are automatically connected together. Now, one thing that's important to recognize here with the connection between my company.pri domain and my Denver domain is that the two namespaces I'm looking at here, the namespace being the words company.pri, are what we call contiguous, meaning that denver.company.pri is effectively a subset of company.pri. Now, in the oldest of days, it was necessary for us to maintain a contiguous namespace between any domains that were connected together into a single forest. But these days, it's actually possible to create non-contiguous namespaces as well. So I could have a subdomain of company.pri being taco, for example, or anything that I want. Now, again, when we move to the 412, you'll learn more about why I would do that versus why I would not, and some of the gotchas and things you have to be aware of should you go down the non-contiguous namespace route. But here in 2012 R2, we do have the ability to create these non-contiguous namespaces. Domains also needn't necessarily be just a single layer deep. We can have multiple layers of different domains. So test.denver.company.pri and production.denver.company.pri. And I can even go non-contiguous into my subdomains as well. So taco.pri and burrito.com needn't necessarily be organized with each other except to be in a completely different branch of the tree. Now, I'm showing you this not because I'm trying to incent you towards creating this large and complicated multi-domain structure. In fact, as I mentioned before, in most organizations, we have moved to a single domain, single forest structure because trying to figure out where users are and the management of users and computers and resources across domain boundaries, it gets just really, really complicated. Because of that, the very slight benefits that people get out of multi-domains are in many cases outweighed by the incredible headache that's involved with figuring out where stuff goes and how you can simply address it.